Kelly, thank you for hopping on the phone. I know that you have covered Mrs. Carter extensively. In 2004, I mean, you take it all the way back to 2004, NBC did a 4-part series on America's First Ladies, and Mrs. Carter was one of those First Ladies that you covered and had an interview with her. Can you just talk a little bit about her legacy and the impact that she had, not just on the White House, but on America?
Well, I'm happy to do that, Simone, and it is good to be with you and to have a chance to talk about her contributions and her service. What I so vividly remember about that visit with her in Plains when we were doing that series about First Ladies is I posed a question to her about the fact that President Carter, especially at that time when he was still very vigorous and healthy and very publicly involved. They were doing their Habitat for Humanity. They were working to eradicate illness around the world through the Carter Center. They were working to protect to preserve democracy and the sanctity of elections around the globe. All of those very active things. And I described in a question to her about her husband being viewed as one of the finest former presidents, thinking that might be a nice question. Well, she viewed it quite differently, Simone. She was very irritated with me about that and made it clear that she believed her husband was a superb president, that history would ultimately judge that, and it was not any kind of consolation to her that he was so highly regarded and has been highly regarded for his service after the White House. So I knew in that moment in engaging with her what a partner she has been to President Carter and how much she was fiercely loyal and fiercely involved in his success and all the achievements he has accomplished, but also as someone who would not let a narrative about service after the White House diminish his time in the White House. And with that, I felt quite a bond with her because I could feel her passion. I could see the work and the importance of all of that. And what really stands out to me is that I was there to see Mrs. Carter. We spent a lot of time together. And as you know from doing interviews, often when you're in an interview situation, you have the bright lights brought in for television, and then the rest of the room can be quite dark as we try to control the light. And that was the case when I was meeting with her in Plains then. And what I did not know is that standing behind me in the dark was President Carter. And when the interview wrapped and I said my thank yous and we were going on to do the next part of that special report, he was there to support her. And I had a chance to speak with him and to spend time with him, and we've gotten to know each other over the years since. And that experience is what I hold so dear about getting to know them. I love covering politics and presidents and politicians, and it is most exquisite to me when you get to see their public life and their personal life and their humanity. And I got to do that in that time with them. He was there for her, and she had always been there for him. And in just the time of doing that story, that was very vivid to me. In the times and years since, when I've gone to Plains and when we have done coverage related to the Carters, what I am also struck by is how the good works that they talked about have extended to their home community, where they have lots of organizations where people are looking out for others. And, of course, at the Carter Center, where it has a global impact with work around the world. These are two people who made the most of their very long lives. And I think in a week of Thanksgiving, many Americans will take time to thank them for their service and to remember her. Also a mother of 4, a grandmother and great-grandmother, someone very involved in her home church and in her home community, and someone who tried to make an impact around the world. So I am struck by all of her gifts to the nation and to humanity as a humanitarian and the work that she did. And she was very much someone who loved being in politics. And that feels very different in the world we're in today and the world we talk about day in, day out about our politics. They represent a time of nobility in public service and of contribution and of treating others, even your adversaries, with respect. And so those are things that I think many people will look to in these days as we remember Rosalind Carter. Simone?
She truly is just one of the great first ladies of this country. Kelly, before I let you go, if we could just talk about the impact that Mrs. Carter had on the office of the First Lady. She transformed the office, as I said in my opening, not just for herself, but every First Lady after her. It is because of Rosalind Carter that the office of the First Lady is organized into social and personal and scheduling in advance and special projects. Like, she made it a job. Can we talk a little bit about her impact in that role for all of the First Ladies?
And it is so important because, of course, it is an unelected and unpaid position, and yet one of enormous influence. So many of our First Ladies are often more popular than the president himself over time, over many examples, and they are held in a very special place in American life, often because they can do special projects and good work. She wanted to do more than that. She was an advisor. She was a direct diplomatic emissary for President Carter. That was not done. And it is not often known that her birth name is Eleanor Rosalind Smith. And so she, in many ways, was a lot like Eleanor Roosevelt in that she had an outsized advisor role, and she felt that it was her place to do that because she had been a partner in life, in the family business, and in politics in Georgia, and that she brought that approach and sensibility to Washington. And so she advised the president. She attended some cabinet meetings when there were subjects of interest to her, and that was controversial. And we have seen how that has not continued since. But some of the types of structure that you mentioned that she brought to what we refer to as the East Wing has remained. And we have seen other First Ladies who have also had prominent and impactful influence in the public life of the nation, in their husband's administration, and so forth. And so her legacy in that area will certainly continue. And for anyone who's listening to us who has taken care of an elderly parent or a sick family member, she really put the notion of caregiving into a whole new level of American acceptance. And she has a whole institute related to caregiving to give support to those who do caregiving and to give resources and help. And that is a lasting part of her legacy. But in those years from 1977 to 1981, in the office, she was an active First Lady in ways that resonate today, and an advisor and a person who could really give counsel to the president when there were big and difficult issues that played out. The election defeat to Ronald Reagan was crushing for her, but over time, especially with service and with reclaiming their life in Georgia, she found new chapters after the White House. But certainly this week, we'll do a lot of looking back and reflecting on her time in the White House and her really far reach in helping others. Simone?
Thank you, NBC's Kelly O'Donnell. Now I want to go to NBC's Chief Washington and Foreign Affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell. Andrea, thank you for joining us. You also covered, I know you've had the opportunity to interview Mrs. Carter on a number of occasions. You, a while back, sat down with 3 former First Ladies all at the same time. Mrs. Carter was one of them, to talk about their impact and reflect on their time in the White House. I just want to talk about just the range of projects and interests that Rosalind Carter had. Everything from Habitat to Humanity to mental health, but she was also very involved in foreign policy, traveling to across the world, really, on behalf of the president, speaking on very weighty issues.
Absolutely. She was a complete partner, a political wife, a partner initially in their peanut farm and planes. Their life together was so long and extended, such a blessing to them both, that, in fact, Jimmy Carter's mother delivered Rosalind Carter, which is remarkable. And when she was the infant, Rosalind Carter, and Rosalind Smith was 3 days old, Miss Lillian, his mom, the midwife, brought Jimmy, her son, who was 3 years old, to see the newborn infant that she had just delivered. So they knew each other all their lives in some way or another, grew up together in Plains, a very small town. I covered them in planes. I remember, in Thanksgivings and Christmases. As a backup to the White House correspondence then. I was not officially covering the White House, but I was just the person who did a lot of holidays in Plains, Georgia, and got to know them. First on Christmas morning, we would go to Ms. Lillian's house, the Pond house, and they would open gifts there, and then they would go to Ms. Allie's house, her mom's house. And, Amy was just a little girl, probably 11 or 12 in those days. Rosalynn Carter would attend cabinet meetings, which was not done even by Hillary Clinton. And she was just the most, forward first lady and partner to him in everything that they did together. But she really, and he was so proud of what she did on mental health. That was a lifelong commitment.